We begin in the NBA in Phoenix. As we all know by now, last week, the Phoenix Suns traded for Kevin Durant. Also a part of that trade was TJ Warren. The Brooklyn Nets, they received Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, 4 first-round picks, and a 2028 first-round swap. So Kevin Durant is now in Phoenix. And when I look at the Phoenix Suns now, after acquiring Kevin Durant, I believe acquiring a generational talent and one of the greatest NBA scorers of all time, I believe the Phoenix Suns are now the favorites in the Western Conference. Because I look at what the Phoenix Suns now add, bringing in a Kevin Durant, teaming up a Kevin Durant with Chris Paul, with Devin Booker, with DeAndre Ayton. I believe that starting 5 for the Phoenix Suns might be the best starting 5 in the NBA. I really believe that. I believe that you're teaming up Kevin Durant with Devin Booker. Now, you look at Devin Booker this season. Devin Booker's averaging 27 points per game on 48% shooting from the floor, 36% shooting from three-point range. Now, he's missed a lot of games this year. Devin Booker has been dealing with nagging injuries this year, but he's starting to get more healthy, and we're getting into the second half of the season. And I believe that the Phoenix Suns, with Kevin Durant, with Devin Booker, that mid-range, it's going to be crazy with Kevin Durant. It's going to be the mid-range for the Phoenix Suns. That's going to be the strength offensively for this basketball team, right? Now, you teaming up KD with Devin Booker. This year, despite him being injured over the last month and a half or so, Kevin Durant this year, he's averaging 30 points per game on 56% shooting from the floor, 38% shooting from three-point range. The Suns haven't had 2 20-point scores on the same team since 2016. So, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they're going to light it up offensively for the Phoenix Suns. And when you look at the Phoenix Suns this year, overall, this was right around the time where they made the trade for Kevin Durant. Now, these statistics could have changed. Now, it's going to improve. But this was the Phoenix Suns before the trade for Kevin Durant. They were averaging 113 points per game. That was ranked 21st in the NBA. They were averaging 44 rebounds per game. That was ranked 11th in the NBA. On 46% shooting, that was ranked 22nd in the NBA. And they were shooting 38% from three-point range. That was ranked 5th in the NBA. This year alone, Kevin Durant is shooting 60% from the floor, which is a career high for Kevin Durant. And that's the thing about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is an efficient scorer of the basketball. As great as Kobe Bryant was, as great as Michael Jordan was, as great as Carmelo Anthony was, I don't think there's ever been an efficient scorer like Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant literally could score 30 points on 12 shots. 30 points on 12 shots. That's how efficient Kevin Durant is. And you look at what Kevin Durant's been able to do team by team in his career. With Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant averaged 27 points per game. That was ranked first in team history. He goes to Golden State. He averages 26 points per game. That was the second highest points per game average in team history. He follows that up, goes to Brooklyn. He averages 29 points per game. That was ranked first in the Nets team history. So the Phoenix Suns adding a talent and a prolific scorer, the likes of a Kevin Durant, it instantly elevated the Phoenix Suns to being the favorites in the Western Conference. I said coming into the season that the Phoenix Suns, they had to make a move. I felt like the team that they had prior to adding Kevin Durant, they had reached their peak. That year when they got to the NBA Finals and they lost to Giannis and Chris Middleton, I said, I don't see this Phoenix Suns team getting any better. Chris Paul's getting older. Devin Booker, he's a good scorer. He's young. You can build around Devin Booker. But Devin Booker, to me, is not as good as a Ja Morant. He's not as good as a Jason Tatum, but he's good. He's good. And DeAndre Ayton, we know he had issues with Monty Williams. Jay Crowder, before he got traded to the Brooklyn Nets, and he ultimately ended up signing with the Milwaukee Bucks. Before that, Jay Crowder hadn't even played this year. So I felt like the Phoenix Suns, they had maxed out as a basketball team, and they had reached their peak. They had to make a move. And them making this move, bringing in a Kevin Durant, definitely improve their chances at being title contenders in the Western Conference. Instantly. That's how great Kevin Durant is. Also, this is another thing that I love about the Phoenix Suns trading for Kevin Durant. I look at the Chris Paul, right? We know that Chris Paul is getting older and he's getting up in age. I mean, right now, Chris Paul, he is 37 years of age. And over the last few years, I believe the biggest issue with Chris Paul has been as the season gets later and we start getting into May and June, for whatever reason, Chris Paul wears down and he has these nagging injuries that he has to deal with. And on that Phoenix Suns team, prior to them bringing in Kevin Durant, Chris Paul was the second option on this Phoenix Suns basketball team. It was Devin Booker and it was Chris Paul. I believe at this stage of his career, at age 37, and he's going to turn 38 May 6th, I believe that you have to take off the load from a Chris Paul and take off that responsibility of Chris Paul having to be your top two scoring option. Chris Paul, at this point in his career, needs to be your facilitator and run the offense. He needs to be the quarterback of your offense. Chris Paul can no longer be a one or two option on a championship contender. That's not who Chris Paul is anymore. And that's also a part of the reason why I believe that Chris Paul has weared down the closer we get to the end of the season. Last year, they couldn't even get out of the first round because in Game 7, Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, and the Dallas Mavericks blew the Phoenix Suns out by 50 in Game 7. It seems like Chris Paul, time and time again, runs out of gas. Now that you bring in Kevin Durant, now Kevin Durant and Devin Booker can take on the responsibility of being your number one and number two option on your team. And Chris Paul can just play point guard and just worry about facilitating and getting DeAndre Ayton the basketball on the block, setting up Kevin Durant and Devin Booker for easier shots and running this offense. So I think that's another thing that bringing in a Kevin Durant, it's going to lighten up the load offensively for Chris Paul. Now, you're still going to need Chris Paul to perform now. You're going to need Chris Paul to perform at a high level. In the Western Conference alone, you're going to be going up against the likes of De'Aaron Fox, Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, Ja Morant, Jamal Murray, who's back to playing at an elite level. So you're going to need Chris Paul to still play at a high level, but now he can pick his spots because Kevin Durant is now a part of this basketball team. Now, the one thing that the Phoenix Suns did lose trading for Kevin Durant, they lost some depth. I love Mikal Bridges. I love Cam Johnson. So trading for Kevin Durant, they lost some depth. But you still got Bismack Biyombo. You still got Torrey Craig. off the bench. You still got Damian Lee as well, and you still got the quick point guard in Cameron Payne. We know how fast Cameron Payne is. So that's what's going to be important. In the NBA playoffs, you got to have stars, but you got to have some depth. You got to have depth. That's what the Clippers had a few years ago when they got to the Western Conference Finals, when they lost to Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns. They had Kawhi, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson. They had depth on that Clippers basketball team. And I think that's what you need if you want to be a championship contender. Last year, the Celtics got to the finals. They had Jason Tatum. They had Jaylen Brown. They had White off the bench. They had Marcus Smart. They had Al Horford. They had Robert Williams. Okay, they had Grant Williams. That Celtics team was deep. Same thing with the Warriors. They had Steph. They had Clay. They had Draymond. They had Looney. They had Jordan Poole and guys like that who were able to contribute on their championship run. So that's what's going to be important for the Phoenix Suns. But when I look at the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference, like right now, the Denver Nuggets are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference with a 41-18 record. The Suns are 32-28. I don't expect the Sacramento Kings. They are 32-25. They're the 3rd seed right now in the West. I don't expect the Sacramento Kings to keep playing at the level they're playing at right now. Now, I love the job that Mike Brown is doing. Mike Brown is my coach of the year. The Sacramento Kings right now, if the playoffs started today, the Sacramento Kings would be the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, and they would have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. I love what De'Aaron Fox is doing. Sabonis is doing out there for the Kings. And again, Mike Brown is doing a hell of a job. He's my coach of the year. But I expect the Phoenix Suns to overlap the Sacramento Kings down the stretch. I also expect the Clippers to overlap the Kings as well. The Grizzlies, they're the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. But in the first half of the season, I felt like the Grizzlies were inconsistent. Last 10 games before the All-Star break, the Grizzlies were 4-6. They were inconsistent. So I look at the Suns as being the favorites right now. Dallas, they're the 6th seed. They got Kyrie, they got Luka, but defensively, Kyrie and Luka are liabilities. Now, offensively, we know they can score at a high level. But defensively, you can score against the Dallas Mavericks. Clippers still got Kawhi. They still got Paul George. They just brought in Russell Westbrook. I'm going to talk about that here in a bit. Nuggets, they got Jamal Murray. They got Nikola Jokic. So they're going to be in the mix as well. But I think with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and if he's interested and engaged, DeAndre Ayton is going to be an X factor for this Phoenix Suns basketball team as we get closer to the playoffs. Monty Williams, the head coach for the Phoenix Suns, during his career, Monty Williams, his career record is 322 wins, 299 losses. He's won 52% of his games as a head coach. I believe that he's not going to be on a hot seat this year if the Phoenix Suns don't make the NBA Finals. And they can't go out in the first round. They cannot go out in the first round with the Kevin Durant and the Devin Booker. But I believe that even if they get to the Western Conference Finals and they come up short against a Clippers team or a Nuggets team, I believe Monty Williams will be brought back next year, and he'll be able to coach this basketball team moving forward. He's already had an NBA Finals appearance on his resume. So Monty Williams will definitely be back. Definitely be back. But I definitely like this pickup for the Phoenix Suns, and I think the Phoenix Suns are definitely the favorites in the Western Conference. I really, really do. But the West is stacked. It's stacked right now. It really, really is. But this is the Suns' potential lineup. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. Now, I don't know if they're going to start Torrey Craig or TJ Warren. That's up for debate. And DeAndre Ayton. That's their potential starting 5 in their lineup. So Phoenix has definitely made a power move that is going to shift the balance in the Western Conference. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports.